The stars had always been silent. For thousands of years, humanity had looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They built telescopes. They sent signals into the void. They dreamed of meeting other beings from distant worlds, but the universe never answered back. Until it did. The year was 2157. Earth had changed much in the past century. Nations still existed, but they worked together under the United Earth government. Climate change had been reversed. Poverty was nearly gone. Humans had colonies on the Moon and Mars. They were proud of what they had achieved. They thought they were becoming a great civilization. They were wrong. In the eyes of the galaxy, they were nothing but insects. The first contact came without warning. On a cold December morning, a massive ship appeared in Earth's orbit. It was not like anything humans had built. The ship was the size of a small moon. Its surface was covered with strange symbols that glowed with blue light. Every satellite, every telescope, every eye on Earth turned to look at it. Admiral Sarah was the first human to speak to the aliens. She commanded the Earth Defense Station, a small military outpost that orbited the planet. Her voice trembled as she sent a message to the giant ship. "Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Sarah of the United Earth Government. We welcome you in peace. Please respond." The response came in perfect English. The voice was cold and without emotion. "We are the Galactic Council. We do not come for peace. We come to inform you of your place in the universe. Prepare to receive our ambassador." Before anyone could react, a beam of light shot down from the massive ship. It struck the center of New Geneva, the capital city of the United Earth Government. When the light faded, a figure stood in the middle of the grand assembly hall where all world leaders were meeting. The alien was tall, almost 3 meters in height. Its skin was pale blue and its eyes were completely black. It had 4 arms and no mouth that humans could see. Yet it spoke, and its voice filled the room like thunder. "I am High Arbiter of the Galactic Council. I speak for the 12 great races that rule this galaxy. We have watched your species for some time. You are young. You are primitive. You are weak." President William stood up from his chair. He was an old man with white hair and tired eyes, but his voice was strong. "We welcome you to Earth. We have dreamed of meeting other civilizations. We hope we can learn from each other and build friendship between our peoples." Made a sound that might have been laughter. It was not a pleasant sound. "Friendship? You misunderstand, human. The Council does not seek friendship with lower species. We seek obedience. Your planet sits in a region of space that we need. Your solar system contains resources that we want. You will give us what we require, or you will be removed." The room fell silent. Leaders from every nation stared at the alien with shock and fear. Some looked like they wanted to run. Others looked like they wanted to fight. But most just stood frozen, unable to believe what they were hearing. General James, the commander of all Earth's military forces, stepped forward. He was a big man with a face and hard eyes. He had fought in 3 wars and had never backed down from a fight. "And if we refuse?" he asked. Turned its black eyes toward the general. "Then your species will be erased. The Council has destroyed 17 civilizations that refuse to submit. You will be the 18th. We have ships that can burn your cities in minutes. We have weapons that can crack your planet in half. You cannot fight us. You cannot defeat us. You can only obey or die." The alien raised one of its 4 arms. A holographic image appeared in the air. It showed a planet much like Earth, covered with green forests and blue oceans. Then fire rained down from the sky. Ships that looked like the one orbiting Earth released beams of terrible energy. In moments, the beautiful planet became a ball of ash and flame. Every living thing on it was gone. This was the home world of the said. They were a proud people. They refused to submit to the Council. Now they are extinct. Their planet is a monument to their foolishness. This will be Earth's fate if you do not kneel." President Williams closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, there was something different in his expression. The fear was still there, but now there was something else too, something harder. "How long do we have to decide?" he asked. "The Council is generous. We give you one standard Earth year to prepare for submission. When that year ends, our fleet will arrive. If you have not agreed to our terms, we will begin the cleansing. Use your time wisely, human." Without another word, disappeared in a flash of light. The massive ship in orbit fired its engines and vanished into the darkness of space. Earth was alone again, but everything had changed. For 3 days, the world was in chaos. People panicked. Some believed the aliens were gods who should be. Others thought the whole thing was a trick. Many simply could not accept what had happened. They went about their lives as if nothing was different. But the leaders of Earth knew the truth. The threat was real. The choice was simple: submit or fight. On the 4th day, the Grand Assembly met again. Every nation was represented. Every voice was heard. The debate lasted for 16 hours without rest. Some argued for surrender. They said fighting was impossible. The aliens were too powerful. Better to live as slaves than die as heroes. Others disagreed. They said humanity had never surrendered before. They had fought against nature, against disease, against each other. They had always found a way to survive. They would find a way again. General was the last to speak. He stood before the assembly with his hands behind his back and his chin held high. "I have been a soldier for 40 years, he said. "I have seen what happens when good people surrender to evil. I have seen the camps, the graves, the broken spirits of those who gave up their freedom. I will not let that happen to Earth. I will not let my children live in chains. I do not know if we can win this war, but I know we must fight it, because if we do not deserve to survive." The vote was held at midnight. It was not unanimous, but it was overwhelming. 247 nations voted in favor of resistance. 31 voted for surrender. Earth would fight. President Williams stood before the cameras that would broadcast his words to every corner of the planet. Billions of people watched and waited. "My fellow humans," he began, 4 days ago we learned that we are not alone in the universe. We also learned that the universe is not friendly. An alien power has threatened to destroy us if we do not become their slaves. They believe we are weak. They believe we will break. They are wrong." He paused and looked directly into the camera. "Throughout our history, humanity has faced countless threats. We have survived ice ages and plagues. We have survived wars and disasters. We have survived because we never give up. Because when we are pushed, we push back. Because we would rather die on our feet than live on our knees. Today, I speak not just for one nation, but for all of humanity. To the Galactic Council and any other power that would threaten our home, hear these words and understand them. Earth does not surrender. Earth does not submit. From this moment forward, the United Earth Government declares total war against the Galactic Council. We will fight with everything we have. We will fight until our last breath. We will show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity." Across the planet, people watched and listened. In cities and villages, in homes and hospitals, in every place where humans lived, the same feeling spread. It was fear, yes, but it was also something else. It was pride. It was defiance. It was the ancient fire that had kept humanity alive for 1,000,000 years. Admiral watched the speech from her station in orbit. Around her, officers and crew members sat in silence. When the president finished speaking, she stood up and addressed her people. "You heard him. We have 1 year to prepare. 1 year to turn Earth into a fortress. 1 year to build ships, train soldiers, and find weapons that can hurt these bastards. I will not lie to you. Many of us will die. Perhaps all of us will die. But we will make them bleed for every inch of space they take. We will make them remember the name of humanity forever." A young officer raised his hand. "Admiral, how can we possibly fight them? You saw that ship. It was enormous. Our entire fleet could fit inside it." Smiled grimly. "Size is not everything. History is full of small forces that defeated large ones. David killed Goliath. The Greeks held against Persia. A handful of farmers defeated the greatest empire of their time and created a new nation. We are the descendants of those people. Their blood runs in our veins. We will find a way. In the months that followed, Earth transformed. Every factory that once made cars now made weapons. Every scientist who once studied medicine now studied alien technology. Every young man and woman who was able to fight joined the military. The planet became a single organism with a single purpose: survival. General oversaw the creation of the Earth Defense Force. He took the best soldiers from every nation and trained them to be even better. They learned new tactics, new weapons, new ways of killing. They became the warriors humanity would need. Admiral built the fleet. Using every resource Earth had, she constructed hundreds of warships. They were smaller than the alien vessels, but they were fast and deadly. She named the flagship Unity, a symbol of what Earth had become. Doctor led the science division. Her team worked day and night to understand the alien technology. They had captured fragments of data during the first contact. From these fragments, they learned secrets that pushed human knowledge forward by centuries. They developed new shields, new weapons, new engines. They gave humanity a fighting chance. But even as they prepared, doubt crept in. Spy drones sent into deep space brought back terrifying images. The Council's fleet was massive. Thousands of ships, each one larger than any Earth had built. The alien empire spread across 1,000 star systems. Their technology was advanced beyond anything humans could match. Some began to whisper that the war was already lost, that all their preparations were meaningless, that they should have surrendered when they had the chance. General heard these whispers. One night, he addressed the entire Earth Defense Force through a global broadcast. "I know you are afraid," he said. "I am afraid too. We face an enemy stronger than any we have ever known. They have conquered worlds. They have destroyed civilizations. By all logic, we should lose this war." He leaned forward, his eyes burning with intensity. But humanity has never been logical. We have always been dreamers and fighters. We have always done the impossible. When they told us we could not fly, we built planes. When they told us we could not reach the moon, we walked on its surface. When they told us we could not unite as one people, we proved them wrong. The Council thinks they know what we are. They think we are weak, primitive, easy to crush. They are about to learn how wrong they are. They have never faced an enemy like humanity. They have never faced a species that would rather die than surrender. They have made a terrible mistake threatening us, and we are going to make them regret it. The year passed quickly, too quickly. On the final day before the Council's fleet was expected to arrive, President Williams addressed the world one last time. "Tomorrow our war begins. Many of us will not see its end, but future generations will remember what we did here. They will tell stories of how humanity stood against the darkness, how we fought for our freedom and our home. Whatever happens tomorrow, know this: I am proud to be human. I am proud to stand with you, and I believe with all my heart that we will win." That night, billions of people looked up at the stars. The same stars they had wondered about for thousands of years. Now those stars were coming to destroy them, but humanity was ready. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Unity. Her fleet was assembled around her. 300 ships, each one crewed by volunteers who knew they might not survive the first battle. She looked at the sensor screen and saw nothing. Space was empty and quiet. Then the sensors screamed. Points of light appeared at the edge of the solar system. 1, then 10, then 100. More and more until the screen was filled with them. The Council's invasion fleet had arrived. Over 4,000 ships spread across space like an ocean of death. Took a deep breath. She thought of her family, her home, her planet. She thought of all the people counting on her. "All ships," she said, her voice steady. "This is Admiral, the enemy is here. Remember what we are fighting for. Remember who we are. Today, we show the universe that humanity does not kneel." She raised her hand and pointed at the approaching fleet. "All ships engage." The first battle of the war for Earth had begun. The void of space lit up with fire. Beams of energy crossed the darkness like threads of lightning. Missiles streaked toward their targets, leaving trails of white smoke behind them. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes that faded as quickly as they appeared. The battle for Earth had begun, and it was terrible beyond imagination. Admiral gripped the armrests of her command chair as the Unity shook from a nearby explosion. One of her destroyers, the Phoenix, had just been destroyed. 300 crew members gone in an instant. She forced herself to focus. There was no time for grief. Not now. "All wings break into attack formation Delta," she ordered. "Target their smaller ships first. Stay away from those battle cruisers." Her fleet scattered like seeds in the wind. The human ships were tiny compared to the Council vessels. The largest Earth battleship was barely half the size of the smallest Council destroyer, but they were fast, they were agile, and their crews knew that retreat was not an option. Commander David Park led the fighter squadrons. His small interceptor danced through the chaos, dodging enemy fire that would have vaporized him in a heartbeat. Behind him flew 300 pilots, the best humanity had produced. They called themselves the Reapers, and they had trained for this moment every day for the past year. "Reapers focus on their weak points," Park said through the communication channel. "Our scientists found gaps in their shields near the engine ports. Hit them there." The fighters swarmed around a Council destroyer like angry bees attacking a bear. Their weapons were weak, designed more for harassment than destruction. But together, firing again and again at the same spot, they began to chip away at the enemy's defenses. On the destroyer's bridge, the alien captain watched with growing confusion. The tiny human ship should have been destroyed by now. His weapons were superior. His shields were stronger. Yet these insects kept coming. They did not run. They did not surrender. They fought with a fury he had never seen before. "Increase firepower," the captain ordered. "Destroy those fighters." But the fighters were too small, too fast. For every one his guns destroyed, 10 more took its place. And slowly, impossibly, their attacks began to have an effect. Warning lights flashed across his console. His shields were weakening. Then the human missiles arrived. They were called Hellfire missiles, the most powerful weapons Earth had ever created. Doctor and her team had developed them using principles learned from studying Council technology. Each missile carried a warhead that could punch through shields and detonate inside a ship's hull. 3 missiles hit the destroyer at the same time. The shields flickered and died. The 4th missile went straight into the engine port. The explosion tore the ship apart from the inside. Across the battlefield, Admiral watched the destroyer die. It was the first Council ship destroyed by human hands. Her crew cheered. For one brief moment, hope filled the bridge of the Unity. Then reality returned. They had destroyed one ship. The enemy still had thousands. High Arbiter watched the battle from his command ship, the Judgment. He sat on a throne made of black crystal, surrounded by screens showing the fight from every angle. His 4 hands moved constantly, touching controls, adjusting strategies, issuing orders. He had expected this battle to last less than an hour. The humans should have been swept aside like dust before a storm. Instead, they fought. They fought harder than any species the Council had ever faced. They fought with creativity and passion and a complete disregard for their own survival. "Fascinating," murmured. "These creatures are more interesting than I thought." One of his officers approached the throne. "High Arbiter, we have lost 4 destroyers. The humans are using tactics we have not seen before. They sacrifice small ships to protect larger ones. They target specific weak points in our shields. They are learning our patterns and adapting to them." "Only 4 destroyers," waved a dismissive hand. "We have 4,000 ships. Let them celebrate their tiny victories. In the end, they will fall like all the others." But even as he spoke, a small seed of doubt planted itself in his mind. 17 civilizations had fallen to the Council. None of them had destroyed 4 destroyers in the first hour of battle. None of them had shown this kind of resistance. Perhaps the humans would provide more sport than he had anticipated. Back on Earth, billions watched the battle through satellite feeds. They saw their ships fighting and dying. They saw the vast enemy fleet that filled the sky. They felt fear unlike anything they had known before. But they also saw hope. In a small apartment in what was once called Tokyo, an old woman named sat with her. They were young, barely 5 and 7 years old. They did not fully understand what was happening, but they knew it was important. "Grandmother," the older child asked, "are we going to die?" Looked at the screen where human ships danced among the stars. She thought about her own grandmother, who had survived the bombing of her city long ago. She thought about all the generations of humans who had faced death and refused to give in. "No," she said firmly, "we are going to win." The battle raged for 3 days. 3 days of constant fighting, constant death, constant destruction. The human fleet was reduced from 300 ships to less than 100, but they did not break. They did not run. They fought until their weapons were empty, then rammed their ships into the enemy. Admiral had not slept in 40 hours. Her eyes were red, her voice was hoarse, and her body ached with exhaustion. But she could not rest, not while her people were dying. "Admiral," her first officer said quietly, "we have lost 60% of our fleet. If we continue at this rate, we will be destroyed within another day." Nodded slowly. She had known this from the beginning. They could not win a straight fight against the Council. They were too powerful, too numerous. But they did not need to win this battle. They only needed to buy time. "Order all remaining ships to fall back to secondary positions around Mars," she said. "We will make them pay for every planet, every moon, every piece of rock in our solar system." The retreat was orderly despite the chaos around them. Human ships covered each other, protecting the wounded vessels and allowing them to escape. The Council fleet followed, but cautiously now. They had learned to respect human weapons. On Mars, General waited with the ground forces. The red planet had been transformed into a fortress over the past year. Underground bunkers stretched for kilometers. Weapons platforms dotted the surface. Millions of soldiers stood ready to fight. "They're coming," said to his officers. "The fleet has bought us time, but not enough. The Council will reach Mars within hours. When they do, we will be ready." A young lieutenant raised her hand. "General, how can we fight ships from the ground? Their weapons can destroy cities from orbit." Smiled grimly. "Let them try. We have surprises waiting for them, things they have never seen before." The Council fleet arrived at Mars expecting an easy victory. They had broken the human fleet. Now they would crush the human army and move on to Earth. It would all be over soon. Then the planet started shooting back. Doctor had spent months studying Council shields. She had found their weakness, a specific frequency that could disrupt their defensive systems. She had built weapons that exploited this weakness. Giant plasma cannons hidden beneath the Martian surface that could strike ships in orbit. The first volley hit the Council fleet like a hammer. 6 battlecruisers lost their shields instantly. 3 of them were destroyed before they could recover. The others scattered, shocked by the sudden attack. "How is this possible?" the commander of the fleet shouted. "Planets do not fight back. Primitive species do not have weapons like this." But the humans did, and they were not done. From hidden hangars across Mars, a second wave of ships launched into the sky. They were smaller than the first fleet, but there were more of them. Each one was armed with the new weapons had developed. Each pilot was a volunteer who knew they were probably going to die. Commander Park led them. His old interceptor had been destroyed in the first battle, but he had found a new ship and a new squadron. He would not stop fighting until he was dead or the enemy was defeated. "All wings target the wounded ships," he ordered. "Finish what the ground cannon started." The Second Battle of Mars was shorter but even more intense than the first. The Council fleet, caught off guard by the planetary defenses and the new human weapons, fell into confusion. Their disciplined formations broke apart. Ships collided with each other in the chaos. Commanders shouted contradicting orders. By the time arrived in the judgment to restore order, the Council had lost another 200 ships. The humans had lost even more, but they had proven something important. They could hurt the Council. They could make them bleed. "Enough," said coldly. "Pull the fleet back to safe distance. We will bombard the planet from range. No more direct engagement until those ground weapons are destroyed." For 2 weeks, the Council fleet sat at the edge of Mars' orbit and rained fire down on the planet. Their weapons turned mountains into craters. They melted ice caps and burned through the thin atmosphere. They searched for the hidden cannons and tried to destroy them. But the cannons were deep underground, protected by kilometers of rock and metal. And every time a Council ship got too close, they fired again. More ships fell. More aliens died. On Earth, the people watched and waited. They had expected the Council to reach their planet within days. Instead, they were stuck at Mars, bleeding slowly from wounds they could not heal. President Williams spoke to the world again. "Our soldiers are fighting and dying to protect us. They are holding the line against an enemy that should have destroyed us by now. Every day they hold is a day we use to prepare more defenses, build more weapons, train more soldiers. They are buying us a future with their blood. We must honor their sacrifice by never giving up." In the factories and laboratories of Earth, work continued around the clock. New ships were built. New weapons were created. New soldiers were trained. The planet was becoming a machine dedicated to one purpose: winning the war. Doctor made a breakthrough. She had captured fragments of Council communication devices during the battles. By studying them, she had learned to decode their transmissions. Now Earth could listen to the enemy's conversations. What she heard was encouraging. "They are afraid," she reported to the military council. "Not of us directly, but of what we represent. They have never faced an enemy that fights like this. Their soldiers are beginning to question whether this war is worth the cost. Their commanders are arguing about strategy. There are cracks in their unity." General leaned forward. "Can we exploit these cracks?" "I believe so. Their species is not one race but 12. Each race has its own interests, its own goals. Some of them did not want this war in the first place. If we can contact them, maybe we can turn them against each other." This was a new kind of war. Not just ships and soldiers, but ideas and information. Earth began sending messages into space. Messages that spoke of freedom and independence. Messages that asked why the Council races served masters who sent them to die against a primitive species. Messages that promised friendship to any who would stand with humanity. At first nothing happened. Then slowly something began to change. Noticed it first. His crews were becoming unreliable. Orders were questioned. Morale was dropping. Worst of all, ships from certain races were not fighting as hard as they should. They held back, avoided danger, let others take the risks. "The humans are poisoning our unity," he realized. "They are fighting us with words as well as weapons. Clever creatures." He tried to stop the flow of human messages, but they were everywhere. They spread through the Council fleet like a virus. They planted doubt in minds that had never doubted before. And on Mars, the human defenders still held. General walked through the underground bunkers speaking to his troops. They were tired, wounded, scared. Many had lost friends in the constant bombardment, but they still fought. "I know you are exhausted," told them. "I know you want this to end, but look at what we have achieved. The greatest military force in the galaxy has been stuck at our doorstep for weeks. They expected to conquer us in days. Instead, they are bleeding. They are scared. They are beginning to wonder if they made a mistake attacking humanity. He looked at their faces, so young, so brave. We are not just defending Mars. We are defending the idea that free people will never submit to tyranny. We are defending the future of our species. And we are winning. Far away in the Council fleet, whispers spread from ship to ship. Stories of human courage. Stories of impossible resistance. Stories that made soldiers question why they were fighting. The war was far from over. The Council still had thousands of ships. They still had weapons that could destroy worlds. They still believed they would eventually win. But something had changed. The universe was watching, and for the first time in 1,000 years the Galactic Council was afraid. 6 months had passed since the war began. The Council fleet still surrounded Mars, but they had not advanced further. Every attempt to push toward Earth had been met with fierce resistance. The humans refused to break. They refused to surrender. They refused to die quietly. High Arbiter stood before the Council of 12. Holographic images of the leaders of each ruling race surrounded him in a circle of light. Their faces showed displeasure, impatience, and something that might have been fear. 6 months, said Prime Director of the. His pale green skin shifted colors as he spoke, a sign of anger in his species. You promised us this war would be over in weeks. Instead, we have lost over 500 ships. Our soldiers whisper about human demons who cannot be killed. Our people ask why we are wasting resources on a primitive planet at the edge of known space. The humans are more resilient than expected, replied carefully. But they cannot hold forever. Their fleet is nearly destroyed. Their colonies on Mars are burning. Earth itself has no defenses that can match our full fleet. We need only push harder. Push harder, Grand Matriarch of the laughed bitterly. We have been pushing for 6 months. Our economy suffers while we pour resources into this war. Trade routes are disrupted. Other species watch our struggle and begin to question our power. The longer this continues, the weaker we appear. Another figure spoke. This was Admiral of the, a species known for their military prowess. Unlike the others, his voice held something like respect. I have studied the human tactics. They are unlike anything we have encountered. They use their own bodies as weapons. They crash ships into our vessels rather than retreat. They hide in the darkness and strike from shadows. They adapt to every strategy we use against them. I have fought many wars, and I have never seen an enemy like this. What are you saying? Demanded. I am saying that perhaps we underestimated these creatures. Perhaps destroying them will cost more than we are willing to pay. The chamber erupted in argument. Some demanded more force, more ships, more destruction. Others called for negotiation, for finding a way to end the war without more losses. A few even suggested retreat, though they were quickly shouted down. Watched the chaos with cold eyes. The unity of the Council was breaking. The humans had done this, not with their ships or their weapons, but with their stubborn refusal to accept defeat. By simply surviving, they had achieved what no other species had managed. They had made the Council doubt itself. Enough, said, and the chamber fell silent. We will not retreat. We will not negotiate. We will crush Earth and show the galaxy what happens to those who defy us. I will take personal command of the final assault. In 1 month, the human will burn. The vote was close, closer than any vote in Council history. But in the end, won. The war would continue. On Earth, the people prepared for the final battle. Admiral had been promoted to Supreme Commander of all Earth forces. She had survived the first battles, though many of her friends had not. Now she carried the weight of humanity's survival on her shoulders. We have 3 weeks until their fleet moves, she told the War Council. Our spy satellites show them gathering for a massive push. This time they will not stop at Mars. They are coming straight for Earth. Generals studied the tactical displays. The numbers were not good. Earth had rebuilt some of its fleet, but they still had less than 200 ships. The Council would bring over 3,000. The ground defenses were strong, but they could not stop an orbital bombardment forever. "We need more time," said. "More ships, more weapons, more everything." Doctor stepped forward. She looked exhausted but determined. "I may have something that can help. My team has been working on a new project. We call it Operation Prometheus." She activated a hologram showing a small device, no larger than a human fist. "This is a quantum disruptor. It uses principles of physics that the Council does not understand. When activated, it creates a field that destabilizes any energy-based technology within its range. Shields, weapons, engines, everything fails." "How large is the range?" asked. "Currently about 1 kilometer. But if we can build a larger version, powered by a ship's reactor, the range could extend to hundreds of kilometers. It could disable entire fleets." Hope flickered in the room. "How long until it is ready?" Hesitated. "The small version works perfectly. The large version has problems. The power requirements are enormous. The field is unstable. We have had accidents in testing. I would need at least 3 months to make it safe." "We have 3 weeks. Then it will not be safe. Activating the large disruptor could destroy the ship that carries it. The crew would not survive." Silence fell over the Council. They all understood what this meant. The weapon could work, but someone would have to die using it. Commander Park spoke up. He had been quiet until now, listening from the back of the room. "I will do it." Every eye turned to him, shook her head. "David, you have done enough. You have fought in every battle. You have already cheated death 100 times. We cannot ask this of you." "You are not asking. I am volunteering." Park walked to the center of the room and looked at each person in turn. "I have no family left. My parents died on Mars. My brother was killed in the first battle. All my friends have been taken by this war. I have nothing left to lose except my life, and I would gladly give that to save Earth." "There must be another way," said. "We cannot throw away our best pilot on a suicide mission." Park smiled sadly. "I am a good pilot, General, but I am not the best. There are younger pilots now, trained in the new ships, who can fly circles around me. My time is passing. Let me use what remains of it for something that matters." The debate continued for hours. In the end, they voted. Park would lead the mission. He would carry the quantum disruptor into the heart of the Council fleet and activate it. He would probably die. But if the weapon worked, he would take thousands of enemy ships with him. The next 3 weeks were a blur of activity, and her team worked without sleep to complete the disruptor. Engineers built a special ship to carry it, a fast cruiser that could penetrate enemy formations. Pilots trained for the assault that would support Park's mission. Park spent his time differently. He walked through the streets of the cities he was protecting. He talked to children in schools and old people in parks. He wanted to remember what he was fighting for. He wanted to carry the faces of ordinary humans with him into the darkness. One evening, he found himself in a small cafe in New Geneva. An old man sat alone at a table, drinking tea and watching the news feeds. Park recognized him immediately. It was President Williams. "Commander Park," Williams said, gesturing to the empty chair across from him. "Please join me." They sat together in silence for a while. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. It was beautiful. It reminded Park of all the sunsets he would never see again. "I was a history teacher before I became a politician," Williams said suddenly. "Did you know that? I spent 20 years teaching young people about the past, about all the wars and struggles that brought us to where we are now. Do you know what I learned from all that history?" Park shook his head. "I learned that every great victory comes from sacrifice. Someone has to stand in the gap, someone has to hold the line, someone has to give everything so that others can live. That is the price of freedom. That has always been the price." He turned to look at Park directly. "What you are doing is not suicide. It is the highest form of love. You are giving your life for people you will never meet, for children who will never know your name, for a future you will never see. There is no greater gift a human being can give." Park felt tears in his eyes. He had been strong for so long, had held himself together through battle after battle. But now, in this quiet moment, the weight of what he was about to do pressed down on him. "I am scared," he admitted. "Of course you are. Only a fool would not be scared, but you will do it anyway, because you are human, because this is what we do. We face our fears and do what must be done." Williams reached across the table and gripped Park's hand. "Thank you, David. Thank you for all of us." The day of the final battle arrived. Earth's fleet gathered in orbit, every ship that could fly, every pilot who could fight. In the center of the formation was Park's cruiser, the ship that carried humanity's last hope. Admiral addressed the fleet. "Today we face the enemy for the last time. If we fail, Earth falls. Our species ends. Everything we have built, everything we have dreamed, everything we are will be destroyed. But we will not fail. We cannot fail. We are the children of Earth, and we will defend our mother with our last breath." The Council fleet approached like a storm across the sky. Thousands of ships, vast and terrible, spreading across space until they blocked out the stars. At their head flew the Judgment's flagship, larger than all the human ships combined. Watched from his throne as the human fleet formed up to meet him, he almost admired their courage. They knew they were going to die, yet they came anyway. Such a waste of spirit, he thought. Such a shame they refused to submit. "All ships begin the attack," he ordered. "No prisoners, no mercy. Wipe them from existence." The two fleets crashed together like waves against a shore. Ships exploded in cascades of light. Beams of energy cut through the void. Missiles flew in swarms too numerous to count. It was the largest battle humanity had ever fought, and it would be their last if they lost. Park flew his cruiser toward the center of the Council fleet. Around him, human fighters died by the dozens, but they cleared a path. They sacrificed themselves so he could reach his target. "This is Commander Park," he said through the communication channel. "I am approaching the heart of the enemy formation, beginning activation sequence." The quantum disruptor hummed to life. Power surged through the ship, more power than any human vessel had ever contained. Warning lights flashed. Alarms screamed. The ship began to shake apart as the field started to form. "Field expanding," Park reported. His voice was calm despite the chaos around him. "Diameter now at 500 meters. Enemy ships are losing power. Shields are failing. Weapons are going dark." In the Council fleet, confusion spread. Ships that had been firing moments before now drifted helplessly. Their systems went haywire. Reactors shut down. Crews found themselves trapped in darkness. 1 kilometer, Park continued. 10 kilometers, 100 kilometers, the field is working. It is working. Felt his throne go dark beneath him. The screens around him flickered and died. The lights of the Judgment faded to nothing. For the first time in his long life, he felt true fear. "What is happening?" he demanded. "What have the humans done?" No one could answer. The communications were dead. The ship was powerless. Park watched as hundreds of Council ships went dark around him. The disruptor was exceeding all expectations. It was spreading faster and further than anyone had predicted. It would cripple the entire enemy fleet. But the power requirements were also growing. His ship could not contain the energy much longer. He could feel the hull beginning to buckle, could see cracks forming in the walls around him. "Field diameter at 200 kilometers, he said. "I have disabled approximately 400 enemy ships. Continuing expansion. I do not think I can stop it now even if I wanted to." Admiral's voice came through the static. "David, can you eject? Can you escape?" "Negative, Admiral. The field would destroy any escape pod that got close. Besides, I have nowhere to go." He paused and looked out the viewport at the chaos around him. Helpless Council ships tumbled through space. Their lights were out, their weapons silent. They were no longer a threat. "I can see Earth from here," Park said softly. "It is beautiful, blue and green and white, the most beautiful thing I have ever seen." "David, tell everyone I was not afraid at the end. Tell them I was happy, happy that I could do this for them, happy that I could save them." The ship shuddered violently. Metal screamed as the structure began to fail. "The field is at maximum expansion, 500 kilometers, over 800 enemy ships disabled. The rest are retreating. Admiral, the enemy is retreating." Was crying now. "David, thank you for everything. Take care of Earth, Admiral. Take care of humanity. We are worth saving. We are worth." The transmission ended in a burst of static. Park's ship was gone, but the damage was done. Over 1,000 Council ships drifted powerless in space. The rest of the fleet, shocked and terrified, was fleeing toward the edge of the solar system. On Earth, billions watched the impossible happen. The enemy was running. Humanity had won. For the first time in 6 months, the night sky was clear of threats. The stars shone down on a world that had refused to die, a species that had fought against all odds and triumphed. Commander David Park was gone, but his sacrifice had changed the course of history. Because of him, humanity would live. Because of him, the war could be won. The Council had threatened Earth. Earth had answered. And now nothing would ever be the same. The aftermath of Commander Park's sacrifice changed everything. 1,047 Council ships drifted powerless in space. Their crews were alive but helpless, trapped in metal tombs without power or communication. The rest of the invasion fleet had fled beyond the edge of the solar system, too shocked and scared to continue the attack. Admiral wasted no time. Within hours, human ships surrounded the disabled enemy vessels. Soldiers in spacesuits boarded them one by one, taking prisoners and capturing technology. It was the largest military operation in human history, and it went almost without resistance. The Council soldiers, who had been so confident in their superiority, surrendered by the thousands. Among the captured ships was the Judgment itself. High Arbiter, the architect of the war against humanity, was found on his dead throne in complete darkness. When the human soldiers came for him, he did not fight. He simply sat there, staring at the young humans with their primitive weapons, unable to understand how everything had gone so wrong. "You are beaten," the squad leader told him. "Come quietly." Rose from his throne with what dignity he had left. "This is not over. The Council will send more ships. They will send armies beyond counting. You have won a battle, but you will lose the war." The squad leader smiled. "Maybe, but today you are our prisoner. Today we won." On Earth, the celebrations lasted for days. People danced in the streets. They sang songs and held each other and cried tears of joy and relief. The shadow that had hung over them for so long was lifted. They were alive. They were free. They had done the impossible. But the leaders knew the war was not over. The Council still had thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, resources beyond measure. The defeat at Earth was a wound, but not a killing blow. If humanity did not follow up their victory, the enemy would return stronger and more determined than before. General addressed the War Council 3 days after the battle. The room was full of tired but hopeful faces. They had won, but they knew there was more fighting ahead. "The Council is in disarray," reported. "Our intelligence shows that defeat has caused chaos in their government. Several races are questioning whether the war should continue. Some are even demanding a peace treaty. But others, especially the End, want revenge. They are calling for a new invasion, bigger than the first." Admiral leaned forward. "How long before they can organize another attack?" "Our best estimates say 2 years, maybe 3. They need to rebuild their fleet, replace their commanders, and convince their people that victory is still possible. That gives us time to prepare. Or time to attack." Everyone turned to look at Doctor. She had been quiet since Park's death, lost in grief and guilt over the weapon that had killed her friend. But now there was fire in her eyes. "We have captured over 1,000 enemy ships," she continued. "We have their technology, their star maps, their communication codes. We know where their worlds are. We know how to hurt them. If we wait here and build defenses, we give them time to recover. But if we strike now, while they are weak and divided, we might end this war forever." President Williams spoke slowly. "You are suggesting we invade the Council's territory, attack their home worlds. That would be a massive undertaking. We barely have enough ships to defend our own system." "We have the captured ships. My teams have been working around the clock to repair them and adapt them for human use. With those ships added to our fleet, we would have enough firepower to strike at the heart of the Council. It would still be incredibly dangerous. We would be fighting far from home, without supply lines or reinforcements. If we lost, there would be nothing left to defend Earth." Stood up and looked around the room. "We are already fighting for our survival. The Council will not stop until we are destroyed. We can either wait for them to attack again, or we can take the fight to them. Commander Park gave his life so we could have this chance. I say we use it." The debate lasted for hours. Some feared that attacking would only unite the Council against them. Others worried about leaving Earth undefended. But in the end, the decision was made. Humanity would go on the offensive. 6 months later, the Earth Expeditionary Fleet launched into the unknown. 200 human ships and 300 captured Council vessels formed the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Admiral commanded from the Bridge of the Unity, which had been repaired and upgraded with alien technology. They had chosen their first target carefully. It was a Council supply station called Nexus Prime, located at a crossroads of several major trade routes. Destroying it would disrupt the Council's logistics and send a message that humanity could strike anywhere. The fleet traveled through what the aliens called slip space, a faster-than-light method of travel that compressed distances across the galaxy. It had taken humanity's scientists months to understand how to use the captured technology, but now they moved through the void like ghosts, undetected by Council sensors. "Approaching Nexus Prime," the navigation officer reported. "We will exit slip space in 30 seconds. Took a deep breath. This was the moment of truth. They were about to bring war to an enemy that had threatened to destroy them. They were about to show the galaxy that humanity was not prey, but predator. "All ships prepare for combat," she ordered. "Target their defenses first, then the station itself. No one fires until I give the command." The fleet emerged from slip space like lightning from a clear sky. Nexus Prime hung before them, a massive structure of metal and light. Around it orbited a defense fleet of 50 Council ships, completely unprepared for what was about to happen. "Fire," said. The human weapons blazed to life. Missiles and energy beams struck the Council defenders before they could raise their shields. Ships exploded. Stations crumbled. In the first minute of battle, half the defense fleet was destroyed. The survivors tried to fight back, but they were outmaneuvered. Human pilots, trained in the aggressive tactics that had won the Battle of Earth, flew circles around the larger Council ships. They targeted weak points with surgical precision. They covered each other and exploited every opening. Within an hour, Nexus Prime was burning. The station's core exploded in a brilliant flash that could be seen from a dozen nearby systems. Every Council ship in the area was either destroyed or captured. Humanity had struck its first blow beyond its own solar system. When the news reached the Council, panic spread through their civilization. The humans were coming. The primitives they had dismissed as easy prey were now hunting them across the stars. No one knew where they would strike next. Admiral of the requested an audience with the Council of 12. Unlike the others, he did not look afraid. He looked thoughtful. "I warned you," he said simply. "I told you these humans were different. Now they have proven it. They are not just defending their home anymore. They are conquering." "What do you suggest we do?" Prime Director demanded. "Send another fleet. We tried that. It failed spectacularly." "I suggest we talk to them." The chamber erupted in outrage. Talk to the humans. Negotiate with primitives. The very idea was an insult to the Council's dignity. But held up his hand for silence. "Listen to me carefully. We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years because we were the strongest, but strength can take many forms. The humans are strong in ways we do not understand. They feel things we cannot feel. They fight for reasons we cannot comprehend. Against such an enemy, mere force is not enough." "Are you suggesting we surrender?" Grand Matriarch asked incredulously. "I am suggesting we adapt. The humans are not trying to destroy us. They are trying to survive. If we can show them that they can survive without war, perhaps they will stop fighting. Perhaps we can find a way to coexist." "And if they refuse?" Shrugged. "Then we will have lost nothing by trying, but I believe they will listen. I have studied them extensively. They are capable of great violence but also great compassion. They formed a government that united hundreds of nations. They stopped wars that had lasted generations. They are builders as much as destroyers." The debate that followed changed the course of history. For the first time since its founding, the Galactic Council considered the possibility of peace with a species they had tried to exterminate. It was not an easy decision. Thousands of years of pride and prejudice had to be overcome. But the alternative was a war without end, a war they were beginning to realize they might not win. Meanwhile, the Earth Expeditionary Fleet continued its campaign. They struck at military bases and supply depots, always careful to avoid civilian targets. Admiral had been very clear about this. They were fighting to survive, not to commit genocide. They wanted to break the Council's will to fight, not destroy their civilization. After 6 months of raids, the human fleet received a message. It came through all communication channels, broadcast on every frequency. It was from the Council of 12. "To the forces of Earth, we request a meeting to discuss the cessation of hostilities. We propose a neutral location in the system where neither side has military presence. We will come with one ship only. We ask that you do the same." Read the message 3 times before she believed it. The Council wanted to negotiate. The enemy that had promised to destroy humanity was asking for peace. She contacted Earth immediately. President Williams and the War Council reviewed the message for hours, debating whether it was a trap or a genuine offer. In the end, they decided to take the risk. The potential for ending the war was too important to ignore. Selected her best diplomats and headed for the system. Her ship was the Unity, carrying a small team of negotiators and a very special prisoner. High Arbiter, who had been held on Earth since his capture, was being brought to witness the discussions. The meeting took place on a small moon orbiting a gas giant. The Council had constructed a temporary structure for the negotiations, a dome of transparent material that let both sides see the stars above. It was neutral ground, belonging to no one. Admiral represented the Council. He came with a delegation from several species, including those who had supported the war and those who had opposed it. They looked nervous, uncertain, completely different from the arrogant conquerors who had threatened Earth less than 2 years before. "Thank you for coming," said as the humans entered the chamber. "I know this required courage on your part." Studied the alien carefully. She had read all the intelligence reports about him. He was a warrior respected by his peers, known for his honesty. If anyone on the Council could be trusted, it was probably him. "We are here to discuss peace," she said. "But let us be clear. We will not accept any terms that threaten Earth's security. We will not surrender. We will not submit. If your Council cannot accept humanity as an equal, there is nothing to discuss." "I understand, and I want you to know that I personally opposed this war from the beginning, not because I thought we would lose, but because I believed it was unnecessary. The galaxy is vast. There is room for all of us." The negotiations lasted for 3 days. There were arguments and accusations. Old wounds were reopened. The humans demanded justice for the unprovoked attack on their world. The Council demanded an end to the raids on their territory. Neither side was willing to give everything the other wanted. But slowly, painfully, progress was made. Proved to be a skilled mediator, finding compromises that satisfied both sides. Surprised herself by respecting the alien admiral. He was not cold and arrogant. He was a soldier who wanted the fighting to end. On the 4th day, they reached an agreement. The Treaty of, as it would be known, established peace between Earth and the Galactic Council. The Council recognized humanity as a sovereign species with rights equal to any other. They agreed to pay reparations for the damage caused by their invasion. They promised to never threaten Earth again. In return, humanity agreed to end its military campaign. They would return the captured ships and release all prisoners. They would join the galactic community as a member rather than an enemy. There was one final detail. High Arbiter was brought before both delegations. The alien who had threatened to destroy humanity stood in chains, broken and defeated, looked at him with cold eyes. "This creature started a war that killed millions of humans," she said. "He destroyed our colonies. He burned our ships. By all rights, we should execute him." Looked up expecting death, instead continued. "But we are not like you. We do not destroy those who cannot fight back. We will return him to the Council for judgment by his own people. Let him live with his failure. Let him be a reminder of what happens when you underestimate humanity." The treaty was signed as the stars shone through the dome above. 2 species that had been trying to destroy each other agreed to live in peace. It was not the end of humanity's story. It was only the beginning. But for the first time since the Council threatened Earth, the future held hope instead of fear. 5 years had passed since the Treaty of. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. What had begun as a war of survival had transformed into something far greater. Humanity was no longer an isolated species at the edge of known space. They had become a power that shaped the destiny of worlds. Admiral Sarah stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, the massive space platform that served as humanity's gateway to the stars. Below her, Earth shone blue and green, beautiful and peaceful. Above her, ships from a dozen species moved through the void, carrying trade, passengers, and ideas between worlds that had once been enemies. She was older now. The war had taken years from her life and left scars on her soul, but she had survived. Humanity had survived, and against all odds they had built something worth surviving for. "Admiral," a young officer approached her with a data pad. "The representatives are ready for you." Nodded and followed the officer to the conference room. Today was important. The Galactic Council was meeting to vote on a proposal that would change everything, and humanity was at the center of it. The conference room was filled with diplomats and leaders from every council race. Those with their color-shifting skin sat next to the four-armed. The tall exchanged words with the smaller, quick-moving, and among them, scattered throughout the crowd, were humans. Earth's ambassadors had become a common sight in galactic politics. At the head of the table sat Admiral, now the chairman of the council. After the war, he had risen to lead the government that had once tried to destroy humanity. It was a strange twist of fate that still marveled at. "Welcome," Admiral said, gesturing to an empty seat. "We have been expecting you." Took her place and looked around the room. She could feel the tension in the air. What they were about to discuss would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. "Thank you, Chairman. I believe you know why I am here." Nodded slowly. "The human proposal. You wish to restructure the Galactic Council into a true alliance of equals. No more ruling races and subject peoples. No more forced tribute and obedience. A genuine federation where every species has a voice." "That is correct. For too long this council has operated on fear and dominance. Species were controlled through threats and violence. That system almost destroyed us all. It must change. Murmurs spread through the room. Some nodded in agreement. Others looked uncertain or hostile. The old ways had benefited some species greatly. They did not want to give up their power. Prime Director spoke up. He had survived the political chaos after the war, but his influence had weakened. This proposal would strip the founding races of their authority. We built this council. We maintained peace for 10,000 years. Why should we surrender everything we have created? Because your peace was built on oppression, replied evenly, and because it failed. When the council faced a true challenge, it collapsed. Your fleets were beaten. Your leaders were captured. Your people lost faith in your government. That is not strength. That is the illusion of strength waiting to be shattered. A young diplomat stood. Her name was the younger granddaughter of the Grand Matriarch who had supported the war against Earth. Unlike her grandmother, she had grown up watching humanity's rise with fascination rather than fear. The human is right, she said. I have studied Earth's history. They have faced civil wars, world wars, conflicts that killed hundreds of millions of their own kind. Yet they always rebuilt. They always found ways to unite. Their government is imperfect, but it is resilient. It survives because it adapts, because it allows new voices to be heard. We should learn from them. Learn from primitives, scoffed. They are children compared to us. Children who defeated the mightiest fleet in the galaxy, reminded him quietly. Children who now patrol trade routes that we cannot secure. Children who have developed technologies in 5 years that we did not create in 5,000. Perhaps it is time we stopped calling them children. The debate continued for hours. Old grievances were aired. New possibilities were discussed. Spoke several times, sharing the vision that humanity had developed for a better galaxy. A galaxy where strength came from cooperation rather than domination, where progress came from sharing knowledge rather than hoarding it, where peace came from understanding rather than threats. By the end of the day, a vote was called. The result was close, but the proposal passed. The Galactic Council would be reformed into the Galactic Federation. Every species would have equal representation. Every world would have equal rights. The age of empire was ending. The age of partnership was beginning. Returned to Earth as a hero. Crowds gathered to cheer as her shuttle landed in New Geneva. President Williams, now in his 3rd term, was there to meet her personally. You did it, he said, gripping her hand warmly. You actually did it. You changed the galaxy. We changed it together, replied. Every soldier who fought, every scientist who invented, every citizen who refused to give up. This is their victory as much as mine. That night there was a ceremony in the Grand Assembly Hall, the same hall where High Arbiter had once threatened to destroy humanity. Now it was filled with representatives from a dozen worlds, all gathered to honor the species that had transformed their civilization. General was there, though he had retired from active duty. Doctor was there, still working on new technologies that would benefit all species. And in the front row, in a place of honor, sat an old woman named in her. They had grown since the war began. The older one was now 12 years old. He wanted to be a starship pilot when he grew up. President Williams addressed the crowd. His hair was completely white now, and his movements were slower than before, but his voice was still strong. 7 years ago, we were alone in the universe. We thought we were significant. We thought we mattered. Then the council came and we learned how small we really were. They had ships that could destroy worlds. They had technology beyond our dreams. They looked at us and saw insects to be crushed. He paused and looked around the room. They were wrong, not because we were stronger than them. We were not. Not because we were smarter. In many ways, they knew more than we did. They were wrong because they underestimated the most powerful force in the universe, the human spirit. When they threatened our world, we did not despair. We united. When they attacked our people, we did not surrender. We fought back. When they expected us to break, we became stronger. We showed them that courage is more important than technology, that determination is more valuable than numbers, that freedom is worth any price. Today, we stand not as conquerors but as partners. We could have used our victory to dominate others as they tried to dominate us. Instead, we chose a different path. We chose to build a future where all species can thrive together. We chose to prove that the values we fought for were not just words, but principles we would live by. This is humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not weapons or technology or power, but the belief that no being is too small to matter, no dream is too large to pursue, and no darkness is too deep to overcome. After the ceremony, found herself standing before a memorial that had been built in the center of the hall. It was a simple structure, a pillar of black stone with names carved into its surface. The names of everyone who had died in the war. Millions of names, stretching from floor to ceiling, wrapping around the pillar in an endless spiral of sacrifice. Near the top, she found the name she was looking for, Commander David Park. "I wish you could see this," she said quietly. "I wish you could see what your sacrifice meant. The galaxy is changing because of what you did. People who will never know your name will live in peace because of you." She stood there for a long time, remembering her friend, remembering all the friends she had lost. The price of victory was measured in graves, and humanity had paid dearly. But it had been worth it. Every tear, every loss, every moment of despair had led to this. A future where Earth was not threatened but respected, where humanity was not prey but partner, where the children of tomorrow would grow up knowing that they were part of something greater than themselves. In the years that followed, humanity continued to surprise the galaxy. Their scientists made discoveries that revolutionized medicine and transportation. Their artists created works that moved beings on 1,000 worlds. Their explorers ventured into unknown regions of space, making contact with species that even the old council had never encountered. But they never forgot where they came from. Every year, on the anniversary of the first contact, Earth observed a day of remembrance. People gathered to honor those who had fallen and to celebrate those who had survived. They told stories of the war, passed down from generation to generation, so that no one would ever forget what humanity had done. Admiral retired to a small house on the coast of what was once called Japan. She spent her days watching the ocean and writing her memoirs. She wanted future generations to know the truth of what had happened, not the sanitized version that would appear in history books, but the real story of fear and courage and sacrifice. One day she received a visitor. It was Admiral traveling in a civilian ship alone. "I wanted to see you before I retire," he said. "I wanted to thank you." Raised an eyebrow. "Thank me for what?" "For showing us a better way, for proving that strength without wisdom is meaningless, for giving the council a reason to change." He paused and looked out at the ocean. "I spent my whole life believing in our superiority. I thought we were the greatest civilization in the galaxy. The war taught me how wrong I was. You taught me." "The war taught us all many things," replied. "I learned that our enemies are not always what they seem, that even the most powerful can fall, that peace is harder to achieve than victory but far more valuable." They sat together in silence for a while, two old soldiers who had once fought on opposite sides, now united by something stronger than conflict. The waves crashed against the shore. The sun began to set, painting the sky in colors of gold and red. "Do you think it will last?" asked eventually. "The peace, I mean the Federation." Considered the question carefully. "Nothing lasts forever. Someday, there will be new challenges, new conflicts, new threats, but I believe that what we built is strong enough to survive, because it is not built on fear or force. It is built on the belief that different peoples can work together for the common good. That belief has sustained humanity through every trial we have faced. I trust it will sustain the galaxy as well." Nodded slowly. "I hope you are right." "So do I." Years passed. Generations rose and fell. The galaxy continued to change in ways that no one could have predicted, but the story of how humanity faced extinction and emerged victorious was never forgotten. It was told in schools on 1,000 worlds. It was celebrated in ceremonies and festivals. It was studied by scholars who wanted to understand how a primitive species had defeated the mightiest empire in history. And the lesson was always the same. The Council had threatened Earth, expecting easy prey. They had found instead an enemy that would not break. They had learned at terrible cost that humanity was not to be underestimated. The declaration of total war had been made in desperation, but it had led to something far greater than survival. It had led to the transformation of a galaxy. It had proved that even the smallest light can push back the greatest darkness. And in homes across Earth and 100 other worlds, parents told their children the story of how their ancestors had faced impossible odds and refused to surrender, how they had fought for their freedom and won a future for all who came after. It was a story of courage and sacrifice, a story of fear overcome and hope restored, a story that would be told for as long as beings existed to tell it. The story of how humanity went to war with the stars and won.